Whether it is in the sky or on the ground, perhaps the only way to describe the situation in Gaza is utter chaos. Israel says it is expanding its ground assault against Hamas to include all of the Gaza Strip. Now the millions of civilians left in the enclave say they have nowhere safe to go. I'm Ellison Barber in for Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. Southern Gaza was previously described as a safe zone by Israel, but now with the Israeli military expanding its bombardment, that part of the territory is no longer that. Thousands of Palestinians are once again unsure of where else to go. Places like Khan Yunis, the largest city in the south, are being hit especially hard. One hospital there is attempting to treat 1,000 patients while sheltering hundreds of others from the bombing. The airstrikes indiscriminately. The airstrikes there indiscriminately injuring dozens, including a 2-month-old who you see there named Adnan. His father absolutely frantic, not knowing what to do.
احنا من غزه جينا هنا على اساس انهم قالوا لنا ترحلوا يا عم ترحلوا من غزه بلدكم فيها حرب طلعنا من غزه رحنا على الجنوب زي ما طلبوا لكن هاي اللي لقيناها في الجنوب ايش بدنا نسوي والدار كلها اللي نزحين فيها كلها هذا ابن لسه ما سجلش اصلا اجى ثاني يوم الحرب ولسه ما سجلناه.
The UN says Israel's expansion is, quote, strangling the humanitarian operation in Gaza. Right now, it's estimated that 1.9 of the 2.2 million people living in Gaza have been displaced by this war. Since the ceasefire ended last Friday, the Palestinian Health Ministry says over 700 people have been killed, bringing the death toll to over 15,000. Let's bring in NBC's Hala Garani. She is in Tel Aviv right now. Hala, I want to remind viewers of some of the geography here. We have this map, and when we're talking about the Gaza Strip, the entire enclave is about the size of Philadelphia, right, with roughly 2.2 million people. It is one of the most densely populated places on Earth. When the war started, Israel told everyone to go to South Gaza, south of this, the Wadi River, also known as the Gaza River, because they planned, the Israeli military said, to focus their military efforts in northern Gaza and particularly in and around Gaza City. Close to 80% of the population did exactly what they asked. They headed south of this area. Now, these people, particularly in this area of Khan Yunis, they are being told to move yet again. But Hala, when we look at this map, Israel has expanded their activity in the areas in southern Gaza, and it begs the question, where on earth are there safe areas for Palestinian civilians to actually go inside of Gaza? And how do close to 1 million people physically fit in what seems to be an incredibly small area of land?
So the Israeli military has sent text messages and tried to communicate with Gazans in the southern part of the Strip with QR codes. It's divided the Strip into tiny little parcels where it's telling people to evacuate one zone, to go into another. But as you know, Ellison, there are communication blackouts very often. People don't have the means, don't have the ability to access this information. It is also just logistically virtually impossible for hundreds of thousands of people in that tiny, tiny portion of the Gaza Strip, which itself, as you mentioned, is already a very small piece of land, to pick up and leave time and time again. The United Nations Relief Agency, in fact, just in the last few minutes, issued an appeal saying that an immediate humanitarian ceasefire is needed and that these evacuation orders, Ellison, are pushing people to concentrate into what is less than 1/3 of the Gaza Strip. We've been talking about 1/2. The UN Relief Agency, which runs schools and aid distribution, warehouses and the likes, is saying, in fact, 1/3 of the Strip is now habitable, and that the people who are in that part of the Gaza Strip right now don't have infrastructure. They need water, they need medicine, and mostly the UN is saying they need safety, Ellison.
And Hala, Israel does control the majority of the border around Gaza, but there is this section that is where Egypt controls, the Rafah section, where that border runs along the border with Egypt. But Egypt, so far, they have seemed to be fairly reluctant to take in Palestinian refugees, right? Could you explain for us some of the history there? Why isn't Egypt opening their borders to Palestinian refugees like what we saw Poland and other EU countries do for Ukrainian refugees?
That's a good question. There are a couple of reasons. The first one, and I think the most important one, is that Egypt does not want to take in millions of Palestinian refugees. Historically, Arab nations have welcomed millions of Palestinian refugees in several cases of displacement from their homes, whether it was after the '67 war, whether it was after 1948 when the country was created. And this time around, Arab countries are saying, and namely Egypt, look, this is not Egypt's problem to resolve. This is the responsibility of the Israeli government. Secondly, you have to remember that the Gaza Strip is run by Hamas. Hamas is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is the Islamist political organization that was created in Egypt in the 1920s. Hamas is an offshoot that came into being in the mid-1980s. And so politically, there is no kinship between the regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, which is a military-run regime, and the offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas. So there is no desire there either, even though Egypt has been a part of some of the negotiations that have led to the hostage releases. There is no real desire here as well to open the doors potentially to Hamas as well. So those are two of the main reasons why Egypt is not necessarily opening the gates and allowing floods of people in, Ellison.
So, Hala, before we let you go, I want to play some of what U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said this weekend about Israel's renewed campaign here, and then ask you a question on the back end. Let's listen.
You see, in this kind of a fight, the center of gravity is the civilian population. And if you drive them into the arms of the enemy, you replace a tactical victory with a strategic defeat.
Arab Barometer conducted a poll right before this war started. It was conducted prior to October 7th, and they asked Palestinians living in the West Bank and in Gaza how much trust they have, and they asked this particularly of Palestinians living in Gaza, how much trust they have in Hamas's ability to govern. And most of the Palestinians living in Gaza said not a lot or none at all, and most said they supported a two-state solution, meaning they did not agree with Hamas's goal of eradicating Israel. You know this region so well and have so many sources. When you talk to your contacts, do they think this war is moving Palestinians in Gaza closer to Hamas or turning them away?
So it's a good question, and it's one that's difficult to measure and assess right now because we're not able to conduct polling, and it's such a crisis situation now that people are probably just in the business of trying to keep themselves alive and going one day at a time. One thing I would say is when I covered the Israel-Hezbollah war of 2006, the notion somehow that, the war would turn people away from Hezbollah it wasn't true in the end. Hezbollah was seen as this resistance army against the mighty military of Israel, and even though it's a Shia group and is supported by Iran and Sunni majority countries, you had people celebrating them as sort of like defenders of the Arab peoples. In this case, I think it will be probably different, only because people here are suffering so much, and as you mentioned, the popularity of Hamas before October 7th was certainly not high. But if the objective of this, or one of the objectives of this military operation by Israel, is to turn people away from Hamas, I don't see how that is a realistic expectation, because they are blaming their misery on the Israeli military. They're right now not, by and large, blaming it necessarily on Hamas, as perhaps some observers in Israel would like them to. But again, it's important to note that it is something that's difficult to assess. This is public opinion in a territory in crisis, and it's something we'll only be able to measure, hopefully, when things calm down militarily and people are able to just live a little bit more of a normal life. Listen.
Hala Ghorani, thank you so much for your reporting and insights. We really appreciate it. Meanwhile, back and forth attacks between the American military and Iranian-backed militants continues in other parts of the region, particularly along the Red Sea. The Pentagon says one of its naval destroyers in the USS Carney, it shot down 3 drones yesterday as several commercial ships in the area came under what they describe as a sustained attack that lasted for several hours. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan addressed the situation at today's White House briefing.
We cannot assess at this time whether the Carney was a target, but the Carney took prudent action in taking down those 3 UAVs. And we will continue as we go forward to consult very closely with allies and partners to determine and take all appropriate responses. We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran.
NBC News Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kuby joins me now. Courtney, what more are you learning about these drone attacks? Is it fair to describe this as a significant escalation in this region?
Yeah, and it's not just an escalation, but it's also a consistent escalation in activity and behavior and aggressive behavior from the Houthis over the last couple of months. So what's significant about yesterday is you mentioned this was a sustained attack. It was really over the course of more than 8 hours from the first time that the Houthi rebels fired off one of their anti-ship ballistic missiles. In this case, it was towards one of these commercial vessels. It didn't strike it quite yet. But over the course of those 8 hours, they fired more ballistic missiles, striking 3 different commercial vessels. Now, the USS Carney, which you mentioned, the U.S. Navy destroyer that was in the region at the time, responded to each of the ship's distress calls. And in doing so, as the ship got closer and closer to these commercial vessels, it came within range of 3 Houthi drones, also fired from Yemen, Ellison. And in this case, U.S. officials, defense officials, and frankly, the White House, even Jake Sullivan, saying that they don't have any definitive indication that, in fact, the Carney was targeted by any of these drones. But the fact that they were coming in on a certain trajectory, at a speed, headed towards the Carney, the ship captain took his or her right of self-defense and took out those drones before they could actually really threaten the ship. But this is an escalation in activity and aggressive behavior by the Houthis from what we had seen. Now, the bigger question is, does this represent an expansion of the conflict in Israel and Gaza to the wider region? I actually posed that question to the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs today, Admiral Chris Gadi, and he said it could, that this could represent what he called a horizontal spreading or escalation of the conflict wider in the region. He said that's something they're going to really watch for, Ellison.
So if there was a scenario, and I understand you're saying they don't necessarily believe the USS Carney was the target of this, that the target appeared to be commercial vehicles, but say the USS Carney was the target, or there's a situation a week from now where another U.S. ship of some kind in that region is targeted, how could that change the U.S. response? Are your sources saying anything about possible red lines that, if crossed, would lead to a larger response from the U.S. military?
And that's another really key question here, Ellison. So no one wants to talk about red lines, of course, but the reality is the big concern is that one of these attacks is successful. So they were able, if they hit a U.S. ship, if U.S. service members are injured or killed, frankly, if we go, to land in Iraq and Syria, if one of these militia groups is successful in one of their attacks on the bases, killing or injuring American service members or personnel there, the concern is that that would really draw the U.S. further into this. And the reality is, as we've seen on land in Iraq and Syria, is we've seen some of these attacks become more aggressive there or even more successful in damaging infrastructure and injuring service members. The U.S. military has responded. In fact, there was a response yesterday. It was even before one of these attacks was carried out. The U.S. military saw 5 militia members getting ready to fire off an attack drone. They struck the drone, killing the fighters, stopping the drone before it was able to launch against any forces there. But the question back to the Houthis, could there be a U.S. military response here to stop these continued Houthi attacks? And tonight, officials here are not ruling out that possibility, Ellison.
All right. Courtney Kuby, NBC News Pentagon correspondent. Thank you.
Thanks.
9 million people across the Northwest are under flood alerts tonight and for the next few days as an atmospheric river is expected to completely drench the region. The rain is already coming down in places like Seattle and Portland And areas in the mountains could see nearly a foot of rain in the coming days. The torrential rain combined with melting snow will not only create a flood risk, but also concerns for mudslides and avalanches across this area. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns is here to tell us more about what the next couple of days will probably look like. Good evening, Bill.
Well, good evening to you, Ellison. And this was a nasty weekend in the Pacific Northwest. We dealt with an atmospheric river, brought in 2 batches of really heavy rain, and there was some flooding concerns. And now we have this huge storm just off the coast. This is moving in tonight. And because the ground has already been saturated, the rivers already have a lot of runoff in them, and they're running high, this is going to cause a lot of big problems. This is a slow-moving, powerful storm. Just look how huge it is. I mean, you can see it spiraling here in the Gulf of Alaska. So as we've been throughout the last about 6 to 12 hours, we've had periods of rain. Right now, the heaviest is in the Olympics, but all of the rich moisture is just off the coast. This is what comes in late tonight, during the night, and they'll be with us right through tomorrow morning. So, of course, we have flood concerns, and with it, 9 million people are under flood watches. Right now, we don't have any flash flood warnings that are in effect. That will likely be late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Some of these alerts go all the way till Thursday, because that's how many, we're going to get this big storm and then a couple of little ones right after it through the middle of the week. So through Wednesday, the Olympics, which is the mountain range here just to the west of Seattle, that's who could get 8 to 11 inches. That is the #1 concern for the biggest risk for some heavy rainfall. Coastal sections around 2 to 6 and the Cascades around 6 to 9. But we've also got snow in the high elevations of the Cascades. So we're going to get the rainfall and with the warm temperatures, the snow melt. So that's why we're worried about those rivers too. So overnight tonight, this area in maroon, that's the Olympics, that's the area that's under a moderate risk of flash flooding. That means flash flooding is pretty much expected, along with river flooding on top of that. Snowfall, because it's such a warm storm, you have to be way up, like 9,000-foot elevation in some cases to even get any snow out of this. So this is not blockbuster snow. This is actually a nightmare for the ski resorts. They had snow, and now it's raining, and then it's warm, and it's all melting. So they're not happy at all. So here's the timing of it all. This is as we go through at 4 p.m. Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, the heaviest rains will be Portland, Seattle. Tuesday afternoon, late in the day, Seattle starts to get a break, but still raining hard, Portland to Medford. Then by the time we get into Wednesday, notice much of Washington State, especially the Pacific Northwest, okay, but from Portland southwards, that's where the rain will be. And then California, Northern California gets into the mix, but not until late Wednesday. So this is a long duration, really big storm, and we're going to have to watch the river levels carefully. We're already predicting moderate and possibly major flooding in some of our rivers in about 24 to 48 hours from now, Elson. That's when all the water is going to be compiling and heading downstream. We wish our friends luck. We'll continue to update you throughout the week.
A suspected serial killer has been arrested in Beverly Hills. Police say he is linked to 4 murders in 4 days, including the killings of 3 homeless men. They also say he was caught with the help of a controversial technology, an automated license plate reader that ultimately tracked him down.
We know there's controversy out there about the usage of this system. If we did not enter that plate into this system, this individual that we believe is responsible for at least 4 murders may have been out there and reoffended.
Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin in Los Angeles. So, Dana, the suspect here, a 33-year-old named Jared Joseph Powell, he was booked on Thursday on suspicion of murder and robbery. He's being held now on a $2 million bail. How do police say he carried out these crimes, and what do we know about the victims?
Yeah, Ellison, good evening. So this all started last Sunday, November 26th. The first homeless man was killed as he slept on a couch in an alley. The next day, a second homeless man was killed. On Tuesday, an LA County employee was driving home from an EV charging station. Investigators say the same suspect followed him home, robbed him and killed him inside his home. The following day, the 4th victim was shot and killed as he slept on the street. Now, Powell was arrested Thursday in Beverly Hills when his vehicle drove in and pinged an automated license plate reader. Investigators arrested him, and then Friday, they were concerned that they had found 3 homeless men dead, so they put out the word to people to not sleep alone, to find shelter, not knowing that the man they had arrested on Thursday was the same man suspected in these other 3 murders. And then Saturday, they acknowledged that the man they had in custody is the guy that they believe committed all 4 murders. He now faces up to life in prison if convicted without the possibility of parole.
So, Dana, what do we know about this technology law enforcement was referring to? How exactly does it work? And is it something that's commonly used across this country?
Well, it's pretty common here in California. There are about 230 different departments that use this technology. It's been around since the 1970s. It started in the UK as a counterterrorism tool. Beverly Hills alone has 50 cameras, and they plan to add 40 more. They say that this is a great tool to make sure that they are not just stopping random people whose vehicles fit the description of a suspect vehicle, and that they are more precise in their policing. I spoke with the police chief in Beverly Hills. He explained exactly how this technology works. Listen.
If a detective or an officer has identified a vehicle that's involved in a crime, they enter it into a database. That database is hooked to our camera systems, and when the car comes through the city and alerts on that camera, it shows our virtual patrol officers who are monitoring the cameras that there's an alert. They then can dispatch officers directly to where the vehicle is when they find it on camera. So I equate it like a Ring doorbell.
Yeah, so several communities across California and the country have adopted these cameras, but you've got other cities like Coachella, which last year rejected a proposal to add cameras because of criticism. Ellison?
All right, NBC's Dana Griffin in Los Angeles. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma was the focus at the Supreme Court today. We'll tell you why justices are torn over a settlement because of the company's role in the opioid epidemic. Plus, vets and worried owners are trying to figure out why dogs all over the country seem to be getting sick. What we're learning tonight. And he's out of Congress, but George Santos is still making headlines. A movie about him is even in the works. Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Hisham Arwatani, one of the 3 Palestinian students who was shot in Vermont last weekend, is now paralyzed from the chest down. His mother told NBC News that her son may never walk again due to a bullet lodged in his spine. He will begin rehabilitation this week. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum dropped out of the 2024 presidential race today. The Republican candidate failed to qualify for recent debates, including the debate this Wednesday. Florence Pugh is the latest celebrity to be struck on stage by an object thrown from someone in a crowd. Video you see on your screen there, it shows the British actor at Brazil's Comic-Con with her Dune Part 2 castmates when an unknown object hits her in the face. A former U.S. ambassador was arrested today on charges of secretly working for Cuba. Attorney General Merrick Garland had this to say about the arrest.
The department has charged former U.S. ambassador to Bolivia, Victor Manuel Rocha, with illegally acting as an agent of a foreign government. This action exposes one of the highest reaching and longest lasting infiltrations of the U.S. government by a foreign agent.
Rocha allegedly met with an undercover FBI agent several times and boasted about his loyalty to Havana and called the United States, quote, the enemy. The government claims he has been working for Cuba from 1981 up until now. Today, former President Donald Trump tried to appeal a ruling that upheld a gag order in his civil fraud trial in New York. But the court denied his motion, and the order will remain in place at least through next Monday, when Trump is scheduled to take the witness stand. The order bars Trump from publicly commenting about the judge's staff after the former president previously targeted one of his law clerks. In Philadelphia, a protest outside of an Israeli-style falafel shop is sparking outrage today, even drawing condemnation from the White House. This was the scene outside of Goldie restaurant last night. Take a listen.
Goldie, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
NBC News' Stephanie Gosk has more.
At Goldie Falafel Shop in Philadelphia, a lunchtime rush. Little sign of the scene Sunday night, where police say 400 to 500 protesters gathered.
We charge you with genocide!
They accuse the restaurant, co-owned by Israeli chef Michael Solomonov, of supporting genocide in Gaza. Today, the White House called the protest anti-Semitic. Pennsylvania's governor said it echoed 1930s Germany.
The purposeful gathering of a mob outside of a restaurant simply because it is owned by a Jewish person, well, that's anti-Semitism, plain and simple.
Solomonov has multiple restaurants in the area specializing in Israeli food. He was born in Israel but grew up in Pittsburgh. So far, the award-winning chef hasn't commented publicly. A pro-Palestinian group that appears to have organized last night's protest called for a boycott of Goldie's and other Jewish-owned restaurants after the Israel-Hamas war began. The group did not respond to NBC News' request for comment.
If you're protesting policies in Israel, it's one thing. It's another thing when you're sitting here chanting things like, we charge you with genocide.
For some, lining up today for falafel was a kind of counter-protest.
People can have a lot of opinions about what's going on with the war in Gaza. I think it's a lot of things. It's tragic. It's complicated. What it isn't an excuse to treat people badly.
The protest here was part of a larger demonstration. There was some vandalism, but police say no arrests. Ellison?
Stephanie Gosk, thank you. All eyes are on the Sackler family today as justices in the Supreme Court debate over whether opioid company Purdue Pharma should be able to go forward with their bankruptcy plan that could make them, in some ways, at least the Sackler family, untouchable in the future. You see, many families devastated by the opioid crisis, they are seeking settlements from the Sackler family via the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy lawsuit. Now the company, they say they're willing to pay up to about $6 billion, but they don't want to be held liable in any future cases. The family doesn't. NBC's Hallie Jackson spoke to one lawyer hoping to hold that family accountable.
For Ellen Isaacs,
he was a remarkable young man.
The grief still raw after her son, Ryan, overdosed and died in her home in 2018 after struggling 17 years with addiction.
I hear this huge bang on the bathroom wall, and I finally got it unlocked, and he was there on the floor, blue and foaming at the mouth.
Isaac says Ryan got hooked on opioids after doctors prescribed him painkillers for a back injury. It's why she joined a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, formerly owned by the Sackler family. But the terms of the settlement mean she wouldn't be able to sue on her own down the road. No one would, since the settlement releases the Sacklers from future liability.
The Sacklers are just doing whatever they want to do, and we're stuck left and holding the bag.
It's every mother's nightmare. And so for Purdue to come in and structure a way to their owners to escape liability is just wrong. That's all she's asking for, to go before a jury of her peers and have a trial.
Attorney Mike Quinn.
This is not over.
In court today after giving up corporate cases to devote more time fighting for victims of the opioid crisis, an epidemic estimated to have killed more than 600,000 Americans.
This bankruptcy system was not set up for people to absolve themselves of wrongdoing and really bad activities.
Under the Sackler family, Purdue manufactured OxyContin, the highly addictive opioid. The company's already pleaded guilty to multiple crimes related to misleading the public about the drug's potential for abuse. Hospitals, states, and individuals brought thousands of cases against Purdue, which this settlement, now on hold, would resolve. Its terms mean the Sacklers would be paying billions of dollars to victims and others in return for the release of liability. To some, it is enough. Lawyers for one group representing multiple plaintiffs, writing in a brief, while their clients have no love lost for the Sacklers, they recognize the settlement is the only means of getting billions of dollars in life-changing and life-saving funds that are desperately needed today. Reps for the Sacklers did not respond to our request for comment, but lawyers for Purdue in court argued this money matters.
Creditors and victims will be left with nothing, and lives literally will be lost. Nothing in the code commands that tragic result.
Hallie Jackson, thank you. You can watch Hallie Jackson now every day from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC News Now. Coming up, George Santos is threatening to file an ethics complaint against his former colleagues who kicked him out of Congress. We have those details. But first, you gotta see this. A lost species found thanks to a challenging mole hunt. Scientists found this blind golden mole burrowing through South Africa's sand dunes last month. The species hadn't been seen since 1936 and was thought to be possibly extinct. During the 2-year search, scientists surveyed 11 miles miles of sand dune each day to try and find the mole. Since it can't be seen, the animal uses its sharp hearing to navigate because it cannot see, and its shiny fur coat, which secretes oil, lets it move around smoothly through the sand. Talk about a slick discovery. We will be right back. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following tonight. A funeral home in Colorado will be demolished next month because the Environmental Protection Agency says that's what it will take to remove all of the hazardous materials inside. And that's because nearly 200 bodies were being improperly stored there. The couple that owns the funeral home, they have been hit with a number of criminal charges, including abuse of a corpse, forgery, and money laundering. The bodies were discovered in October after neighbors reported, quote, an abhorrent smell coming from the property. Alaska Airlines reaches a deal to buy Hawaiian Airlines for nearly $2 billion, and that includes $900 million of Hawaiian Airlines debt. The proposed deal would combine carriers that largely serve destinations in the Pacific region. We say proposed because the deal still has to clear antitrust hurdles. And thousands of faculty members from California State University walked out of their classrooms today as part of a rolling strike. For 4 days, different union members from within the California State University system will participate in separate one-day walkouts on separate campuses. Workers there are demanding higher pay and see this move as a high-profile escalation in contract negotiations. Former Congressman George Santos may have been expelled from the House of Representatives last week, but that certainly was not the last we will be seeing of him. A movie about his swift rise and fall is currently in the works at HBO Films, helmed by the former EP of Veep, Frank Rich. And off the screen, Santos' story, it is still unfolding. In true cinematic fashion, he's plotting his revenge. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the latest.
There's no question the George Santos scandal was a major distraction for lawmakers on Capitol Hill. And the fallout from his short time in office continues at a time when Congress has a lot to get done. George Santos may be gone.
Congressman, what do you say to your constituents?
But he isn't going away quietly.
Gotta get out of my way.
The man who last week became only the 6th member of the House of Representatives to be expelled says he plans to file ethics complaints against his ex-colleagues that led the charge to get him out. Among them, Staten Island's Nicole Malliotakis.
We know that George Santos is a serial liar. I mean, he's obviously scorned since being expelled.
It's unlikely those complaints go anywhere. But the vote that led to his removal revealed deep divisions within the GOP ahead of a busy sprint to the end of the year, where Congress is hoping to pass several important pieces of legislation, including aid to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, as well as a border security package. Those negotiations are making little progress. So instead, House leadership is focusing on something else.
We have a duty to pursue the facts where they lead.
The impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden is already well underway, with Republicans accusing the president and his family of corrupt business deals. But so far, they've produced no hard evidence to back up their claims. For his part, the president has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. That inquiry was launched without a vote under former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. But now Republicans are having trouble enforcing high-profile subpoenas of witnesses like the president's son, Hunter Biden. They acknowledge a formal vote would help move that forward.
A formal impeachment inquiry vote on the floor will allow us to take it to the next necessary step, and I think it's something we have to do at this juncture.
The move to formalize impeachment comes as the right-wing members in Speaker Mike Johnson's ranks are getting increasingly antsy. His leadership is not conservative enough. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said that he plans to put a supplemental aid package on the floor perhaps as early as this week. But if it does not include a border package that some Republicans can support, it likely cannot pass.
Ryan Nobles, thank you. A mystery illness is causing severe sickness and even death in otherwise healthy dogs. Now, doctors are finding clues as they come closer to a potential breakthrough. Here's NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson.
This is Maple.
7-month-old Australian Shepherd Maple was a happy, healthy puppy until her owner, Adriana, noticed a cough.
She's coughing pretty much every other minute.
As Maple's cough grew even worse, Adriana panicked and rushed to the vet.
I was really scared.
Maple was sent home with antibiotics. The vet told Adriana the symptoms were likely caused by the mysterious respiratory illness plaguing dogs across the country.
I would say that there's probably more that we don't know than what we know, which is frustrating.
At Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Kate Eicher began studying the illness after seeing a rash of cases in the spring, including her own puppy.
What should dog owners be looking out for? Something like discharge with the eye, a soft cough, like actually just what he just did.
An online database shows dog owners are now reporting suspected cases in 37 states, with at least a dozen deaths. The cause of the surge in cases, experts say, could include a new pathogen, low vaccination rates, or lower immunity levels after pandemic isolation. Dr. Eicher found one bacteria alone present in 75% of the severely ill dogs she tested, and in reviewing x-rays, noticed a pattern.
Are the patterns that we're seeing here important? They're really important. A lot of the pattern or sort of the brightness that we would see wasn't in the spot where we would normally see it. It was occurring further back in the chest.
Understanding the pattern, she says, could be key for vets to know what medication to prescribe. Treatment dog lovers may need to help their best friends. Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, College Station, Texas.
Right now, the nation's air traffic controllers are being pushed to the edge. A new report by the New York Times shows controllers are overworked, exhausted, and some even say they use drugs and alcohol while on the job. NBC News aviation correspondent Tom Costello has more on the report and the impact of the industry's growing shortage.
It's a high-stakes, high-pressure job. And 2023 has been a year of close calls involving both pilot and controller error, including this one in Austin when a controller cleared a FedEx plane to land just as a Southwest plane was departing.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
One big problem, controller fatigue. 77% of air traffic control facilities are understaffed, leading to mandatory overtime. Medical issues forced Neil Burke to retire this year.
We're tired of working 6 days a week. We're tired of working 10-hour days.
NBC News has obtained internal FAA documents first reported by the New York Times, detailing controllers' own anonymous reporting of mistakes and exhaustion. Among the entries, many employees can be observed sleeping on the job. If I had not been fatigued, I may have been able to recognize the aircraft lined up for the incorrect runway sooner. And I pray no one dies due to controller fatigue. Also included isolated cases of controllers using alcohol and illegal drugs while on position. One claimed a colleague regularly smoked marijuana on break. Another said a controller bragged about making big money buzzed. But with more than 10,000 certified controllers on the job, the new FAA chief says substance abuse is very rare.
We monitor for drug and alcohol use very closely. We have robust reporting, and we follow up on every possible lead that comes in.
Still, both the FAA and controllers unions say overtime fatigue is real.
You're missing your home life. You're missing your kids' ball games and your spouse's events. And it does have an effect.
Controller Michelle Hager left last June.
That is not a sustainable lifestyle, to be working that hard at a job that requires so much mental focus at all times.
We're working every day to make sure that the system stays as safe as it has been for decades. We're not letting down our guard, and we're working that issue hard every day.
Tom Costello, NBC News.
Still to come, a volcano erupted in Indonesia, leaving 11 hikers dead and about a dozen others missing. Those details are next, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. A 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck the Philippines over the weekend, killing at least 3 people. The earthquake initially set off a tsunami warning that was later dropped. The quake also triggered a number of aftershocks that sent thousands fleeing to evacuation centers across the country. Earthquakes are common in the Philippines as it sits in a part of the Pacific Ocean that is prone to seismic activity. A suspect in a terrorist attack in Paris over the weekend pledged allegiance to ISIS. That, according to French prosecutors. The attack happened on Saturday. Police say the suspect went after several people with both a knife and a hammer and killed a German tourist. Despite this attack, French officials are confident. They say they will be prepared to host the Olympic Games next summer. A Japanese tourist has died after leaping from what is considered to be the world's largest commercial bungee jump. It happened yesterday in China. Reports out of Hong Kong say the 56-year-old man leapt off of the Machu Tower. Then a short time after, he suffered shortness of breath and lost consciousness. He died later at a nearby hospital. And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro got a long-sought-after win over the weekend. In a referendum vote, Venezuela was able to claim sovereignty over an oil-rich area in neighboring Guyana, which some Venezuelans argue was stolen from them over a border dispute decades ago. Maduro claims the referendum brought out 10.5 million voters, but local reports say very few voters were actually seen at the polls. A volcano in Indonesia has erupted for the second time in the last few days. 11 people have been killed and a dozen more are still missing. Rescue teams are still searching for survivors. NBC's foreign correspondent Josh Letterman has more.
A huge volcanic eruption in Indonesia stranded dozens of mountain climbers, and local officials say it killed at least 11 people. The sound of prayer as the search continues for 12 more missing people, according to officials. Efforts halted this morning when the mountain erupted again. But amid the smoke and ash, perhaps there's also hope. 3 survivors brought down from the mountain today. One man reaching out for help from high altitude.
He had sent a video of his condition and said that he was trapped. After that, around 6 p.m., he called, and he said that he was very thirsty and could not walk anymore.
The agonizing wait continues for this woman, hoping for news about her nephew as rescue efforts resume.
He left for the hike on Saturday. It looks like he was on his way down and got stuck until now, and we don't know his whereabouts.
Mount Merapi is one of the country's many active volcanoes, located on the island of Sumatra. It's one of more than 120 active volcanoes in Indonesia, which sees so many because it's part of the Pacific's Ring of Fire, where shifting tectonic plates often trigger eruptions and earthquakes. The peak of Merapi has been closed to climbing since 2011, but that hasn't stopped some from breaking the rules. When the volcano exploded in a plume of ash and smoke on Sunday, responders couldn't rescue everyone. They found 11 bodies this morning, but could only recover 3 before it erupted again. A local official saying they fear more eruptions. Around the base of the volcano, several villages woke up under a thick blanket of ash and volcanic debris, unsure if tomorrow will bring more survivors or more eruptions. Josh Letterman, NBC News.
Dozens of premature babies evacuated from Gaza are being cared for in Egypt. Most, however, without their mothers. Now, Egyptian doctors, they are tasked with a dual responsibility, trying to stabilize the health of the babies while also trying to reunite them with their families. NBC News foreign correspondent Erin McLaughlin has more.
Noor al-Bana can't take her eyes off her little girl.
She's beautiful.
Her name is Leanne, she tells us. A moment this new mother once feared impossible, now overwhelming.
That was your first time touching your daughter?
Yes. I'm very happy, she says. Noor thought she might never see Leanne and her twin sister again. The girls were among some 39 babies separated from their families as violence engulfed the Al-Shifa hospital.
RPGs.
Israel, the U.S., and the European Union allege Hamas used hospitals to conceal its military operations and patients as human shields. Allegations Hamas denies. Days into the siege, doctors say the babies began to die. These images of the sick babies emerged from Al-Shifa. While at the evacuated Al-Nasser hospital, this footage of the remains of babies left behind. The Hamas-run health ministry says they were prevented from evacuating them. Israel slamming that as false, but also a perverse exploitation of innocent lives. Back at Al-Shifa, 31 babies made it out alive. A dozen brought here to a Cairo hospital.
They brought them for us with a very bad general condition. Now, more or less stable.
Dr. Mohammed Abu Sakin says all but 2 are alone. Dr. Sakin takes us to see baby Halema, known only by his mother's name.
What happened to his eye?
Removed, explosion, all the building. All the neighbors died.
Doctors say this is what baby Helema looked like when he arrived, now growing stronger every day.
During sleeping, I dream by this boy.
You dream of this boy?
Yes.
Actually. What do you dream?
A dream that is happy. This boy is happy.
Tonight, as the bombs drop in Gaza, that dream for all its children never seemed so far away. Erin McLaughlin, NBC News, Cairo.
Before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Last week, people were freaking out over their Spotify Wrapped year in review. Today, the company is laying off a big chunk of its workforce. Those details are next, so stay tuned now. On the heels of music lovers' favorite day of the year, also known as Spotify Wrapped Day, CEO Daniel Ek says the music service is laying off 17% of its workforce. That's about 1,500 employees. In a letter to staff, Ek said the move is in part due to the company reducing cost and adjusting for a slowing economy. This is the third round of layoffs for Spotify this year. About 600 employees were let go in January and then another 200 in June. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Jake Ward, who is our tech guru, to say the least. Jake, is this part of the larger tech industry contraction that we have seen in the last year or so, or is this specific to Spotify's business situation?
Well, Ellison, thanks for the nice words. And, you know, I think it's a little bit of both, right? We've got a tech industry that, for instance, right now is, you know, really struggling with interest rates. Everybody who's, you know, trying to buy a home or take out a loan from the bank for anything is struggling at the moment. And tech companies rely on the ability to borrow money cheaply to go forward. In the case of Spotify, they have a particular $1.5 billion debt coming due in 2026 that they're probably trying to get in front of. That may be part of what these cost cuttings are, you know, but it's also just a function of the business model itself. Buying the licenses on the music that they then go on to stream to you and I is very expensive. And so their profit is actually very, very low. It's kind of a terrible business model in a way. And as a result, you know, even though they had a profitable quarter this past quarter, which was a big surprise to everybody, they still aren't quite profitable. And it's just a brutal business in that way. And so there's just broad concern here that the whole model of streaming music, the one that they really pioneered, that they're the name of, right, may in fact be one that isn't really a good business in the long term, Ellison.
Is AI playing a role here as well? Because Spotify did roll out this year a new AI feature to try and help users find new music. Presumably that would mean they're on track to not need humans to curate the music that they're offering, be it on playlist or just recommendations. So what extent do you think is this part of the tendency we're seeing in tech to automate job functions whenever they can?
I mean, they really do that, right? I mean, any tech company right now is looking to build AI into their systems to try and cut some costs. Once upon a time, streaming music services basically employed a whole legion of music nerds to curate the catalog and make sure that you and I got the coolest, you know, Japanese synth pop or 70s Nigerian funk. And you had a person whose job it was to be in charge of all of those categories. That kind of job function now is being replaced by people who teach AI how to do that, and then you can cut back from there. But it's part of this broader thing. I mean, you look at any business right now, like Uber, for instance, which sort of set the bar for all of this, right? Even they, who depend on human drivers right now, say in their SEC filings that they are going to specifically try to move into autonomous vehicles. They're going to try and do away with the drivers eventually. They say specifically that use of autonomous vehicles could substantially reduce the cost of providing ride-sharing, delivery, and logistics services. I mean, any company in Silicon Valley, any company that relies on tech is going to try to get rid of the cost of paying humans to do a job if they can. And that may very well be part of what's going on here, Ellison.
NBC's Jake Ward, thank you. Now for the future of UFOs, the subject once considered in the same realm as science fiction and conspiracy theories, back in the spotlight in Washington. Following a recent hearing held by the House Oversight Committee, the government established a dedicated office to investigate unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock looks into what we're learning and what the government might still be holding.
There are many unanswered questions and certainly a mythology that's existed for generations when it comes to UFOs, or UAPs as they're now called, unidentified aerial phenomena. So why now? Why the renewed interest and the congressional testimonies at this moment? Well, a large part of that is because back in 2017, only a few years ago, there were videos that were leaked from Navy pilots showing things in the sky, doing things that are just really beyond the technical capability of aircraft as we understand it. One was in San Diego, showing an object breaking lock and really escaping the perception of those who were watching it. There was also the so-called gimbal video off the coast of Florida. This happened back in 2015, an object with no wings or motor or really sort of the traditional trappings we said we would associate with aircraft that was standing there basically stationary in hurricane force winds, according to the Navy pilots, and then slowly rotating. These videos that were raising all kinds of questions. Well, we spoke with Ryan Graves. He is a former Navy pilot for about 10 years who testified before Congress and told us these kinds of sightings on some level were happening almost every single day. He and his squadron were having to hold debriefs on them. Here's a snapshot of what he's told me.
We upgraded our radar systems, and when we flew with the new radars, we started seeing objects on our radar displays that we weren't seeing just the flight prior with the older radar. As we upgraded all of our jets and all of our radars, we were seeing these on pretty much a daily basis.
If you talk to scientists who are studying UAPs right now, they'll tell you that right now, in a given year, you might see somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 reports of UAPs from military members, then maybe another 1,000 from commercial or private pilots, which is to say maybe about 6,000 of these reports a year. Now, as far as the new agency that was developed by the Department of Defense to resolve these anomalous airborne structures, or whatever you want to call them, Sean Kirkpatrick, the man heading that agency, did say that he thinks about 5% of these are unexplained. But for 5%, that is a lot of aircraft in our space that no one can seem to understand how it moves, why it moves, or where it's coming from. And it's one of the reasons why there are so many calls for transparency from all members of Congress, or I should say on both sides of the political spectrum, trying to get to the bottom of a question that has really perplexed humanity for generations. Sam Brock, NBC News. Back to you.
Our thanks to Sam for that. And that does it for us tonight. I'm Ellison Barber. We will see you tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.